So near and yet so far, Paddy, we are almost reunited, but not quite.
Yes, tomorrow in person, but I'm in Brighton. There's the pier. Well, there's another pier, but it burned down. And I'm close to Hove, where I've been this morning.
On the hunt of Angela Rayner, or on the hunt of Angela Rayner's flat?
I walked in the street where her flat was. I spoke to people who are neighbours and locals. And, friends of hers down here, supporters, are rallying round, but they're shocked, stunned, sad and upset.
Well, we'll hear more of that on today's episode of Newscast. And I'm also just off a very hot and sweaty train back from Birmingham, where Reform UK's enormous membership have been gathering and listening to their leader, Nigel Farage.
Hello, it's Paddy in Brighton.
And it's Laura in the studio. Hello, and how lovely to be back, weekend newscasters, after the summer break.
Yes, I'm in the Harbour Hotel, which is next, not far from the Grand Hotel, which is where the IRA launched an attack on British government when I was growing up. And I've just walked past it again. You can never forget it. Brighton was the home of so many party conferences. I mean, did you come here to Brighton for party conferences?
Yeah, many times. Because Brighton's still used for party conferences these days. And actually, the recent big moment I remember in Brighton was Keir Starmer in 2021 almost sort of losing it when he was very much in the doldrums as the opposition leader. But at that conference, he managed to get a grip again and the unions came out to back him. And I remember doing an interview and asking him a question, which was more important, party unity or winning? And his team were delighted because he said, quick as a flash, winning. And people sometimes said that was sort of the moment where he thought, actually, you know what? To make a go of this, I'm going to have to be tough as an old pair of boots. And that is what Number 10 is trying to project as he's still reshuffling the pack of his ministers as we record at 3:05 on a Saturday. So after the shambles of the earlier week, Number 10 is very much trying to salvage the operation. And we talked about the big headlines of Rayner out and reshuffle in on yesterday's newscast with me and Chris. But it really has been a wild few days as this political season gets underway, Pads.
How cataclysmic is this for any government after a year? I mean, is it sort of normal to lose the deputy in your government over a tax scandal? Does that, because the Conservatives completely rewrote what normal was with their 75 prime ministers. But just in terms of, your view, is Labour's calamity up there with other giant chapters of gloom by governments?
I think losing your deputy prime minister over a failure to pay tens and tens of thousands of pounds of tax is a very, very, very bad thing for any government to experience. There's no question about that. It also really hurts because in a strand of Labour opinion and a way also that Labour connected both with some of its members and some members of the public, there is somebody who had a very prominent voice in the Labour cabinet who wasn't someone who was sort of, swanned around from, sort of Oxbridge then into special advisor mode and then ends up in the cabinet because that was the conveyor belt they were always on. I think there is a real question mark over Labour being able to connect with some of their own members and some members of the public, because Angela Rayner sort of scratched that itch, if you like. And I saw yesterday, her speech when she arrived in Parliament, and she said herself, because she was unafraid completely of talking about this, she said, and I'm paraphrasing slightly, but she did say, I'll talk about things, I'll tell it how it is in my own, and she did say these two words, little northern way. Now, so I'm not saying that to sound patronising like a terrible member of the media class saying, oh gosh, she had her little northern way. She lent into that. She talked about that. And I think for Labour, that is definitely a piece of the jigsaw that it's hard to see how they're going to fill. She broke the rules. She had the book thrown at her. She broke the rules unintentionally, but she tried hard to do the right thing, but not hard enough.
Yeah, the rules are complicated. We've just both said cataclysm, awful, Labour's horrendously in big horrendous place. But the rules are complicated, and she was told in writing, says Laurie Magnus twice, that she could pay the lower rate of stamp duty, do seek expert advice. But it is complicated. So park that just for the moment. What do you think about the prospect of a long deputy leadership campaign being like a referendum on all of Keir Starmer's positions?
Well, that would be an absolute giant pain in the butt for the Prime Minister, frankly. So what Downing Street is trying to do is have an efficient reshuffle, fill in all the junior ministers today, show that they know what they're doing, get back on the front foot, and having made their HR decisions, they think they've got better people in the jobs that they need them to be doing, to be able to get on with the job that the public elected them to do and to climb out of the doldrums that they've been in for such a long time. So they hope. Along comes, however, a potentially protracted, public, likely to be messy debate full of soul and heart and anger about whether or not Labour is really, really, really for the people who find life hardest, whether it's really all about inequality, or whether it's really about trying to get the economy growing, or whether it's really about security and immigration and all those sorts of things. I mean, look, the last thing that any prime minister, let alone one who's not popular, needs is his own party wanging on in very interesting political debates, but talking amongst themselves about the kind of group of people they want to be. And whoever ultimately wins that position, they could also turn out to be a real thorn in the side of the Prime Minister, because people might look to them for a different kind of leadership. And of course, if the deputy leader disagrees with things that the Prime Minister is doing, well, that's going to be pretty awkward indeed. And so much so that you've even, I think, had the former deputy leader, Tom Watson, today suggesting that they should just actually get rid of the position altogether.
Take, for example, the visit of Donald Trump, the state visit. If you've got two candidates, it would be appropriate for you to say on a Sunday TV show, do you think that you'll go to the addresses, the state banquets? And one candidate might say no, just when the US president's arriving. And you might say, well, do you think we should be cutting the welfare bill? And there could be a difference all leading up to the end of November's budget. So whatever he's doing with the reshuffle, he's got this big question, and it's been unfolding whilst Reform have had their conference. I read that when Nigel Farage came early to give his speech, the hall was emptying because it wasn't scheduled. What was the sort of zeitgeist of watching Reform change their schedule because of Labour's problems?
Well, the whole thing about this, I felt, happening while Reform were having their big get-together, and it was a very big get-together, was for Nigel Farage, it just gave him even more fodder for him to try to prosecute his main argument, which is that Labour and the Tories are as bad as each other and that they are both sort of co-conspirators in a system that is broken. So Nigel Farage, presumably to try to get into the news cycle as this news was all breaking, decided to move his speech forward, and he stood up and he said, this government is in crisis, this is all a terrible chaos, therefore it is time for Reform to take control of the country. So frankly, it was an absolute gift. But it was also, I mean, there have been various moments where I remember being at party conferences when you get big news happening elsewhere. You know, I remember being at the Tory conference when the financial crisis was unfolding and we were all in the newsroom, and actually George Osborne's team, then he was the Shadow Chancellor, they were coming in trying to brief everybody, make it sound exciting. They would invent something called, the Office for Budget Responsibility. But on all the news screens, you know, there were sort of lines of red, city traders being sacked, this whole kind of sense of chaos. So yesterday, when the Rayner news came through, there were some more sort of cheers around the conference venue. And then a really surreal moment that I wrote about today, when the names of the new ministers were coming through, Jeremy Kyle, yes, he formerly of the TV couch, who now is a broadcaster doing different things, he and Dr. David Bull, who's the chair of Reform UK, were announcing the names as they came through to the assembled masses in the sweaty NEC in Birmingham. And when he said, David Lammy's going to be the new Deputy Prime Minister, there were sort of pantomime boos in the audience about what was happening. So the whole thing was this sort of world within a world. But let's have a listen to that moment, because it was really weird.
Do you know this?
No.
Politics is an interesting game, isn't it? Do you know who's been sacked?
Tell me.
So the new Home Secretary is Shabana Mahmood.
I know.
The new Foreign Secretary is Yvette Cooper.
Indeed.
The new Justice Secretary and Deputy Prime Minister is David Lammy.
You're a bit behind, Jeremy.
Have a fantastic afternoon. Back to David Bull!
Thank you.
also, I mean, there's this question surely hanging over the Labour ministers and secretaries of state who've been moved. So moving someone, is that because they were doing such a good job, they need to be promoted? So, or is it the fact that they can be moved because their jobs can be done by anyone? I don't know what the scale of the reshuffle is meant to demonstrate to me as a voter. Is it telling me we've got a crack team so we can swap Yvette Cooper with Shabana Mahmood? We can swap them, and it makes no difference to our delivery because they're so good. Or is it promotion that's happening, and never mind what the department is? What's the message?
It's a really good question, because I think it depends how you look at it, and different people in high places have said different things to me. So somebody close to Keir Starmer said to me yesterday, this is all about immigration, because if we don't sort out small boats, we're basically all sunk, no pun intended. And basically we think Shabana Mahmood is going to do a better, more stringent, braver, more urgent job than Yvette Cooper was doing. It wasn't, oh, Yvette Cooper was terrible, but it's that they think that putting Shabana Mahmood into that job is going to create a bigger sense of urgency around cracking the small boats problem. And it was also suggested to me that someone from a Muslim background who's been unafraid in the past of saying things that have upset some kind of softer parts of the Labour Party, more to the left, that she's going to crack it and that is going to be what they want to do. Somebody else gave me a sense that in Downing Street, the reason was different. The reason was about getting growth going, and actually by putting Pat McFadden into welfare and giving him the skills brief, that wily political brain, he'll be able to have another go at welfare reform, and he'll be able to give the sluggish bits of the economy when there are big problems with worklessness, he'll be able to give that a big shove in a way that Liz Kendall wasn't necessarily delivering on. They also suggested to me that Peter Kyle, who was at Science and Technology, moving him into business, they thought that might be a way of encouraging growth, because he'll be able to sort of soothe some of the fevered business brows that there have been. And Jonathan Reynolds, well liked on the backbenches, will do a good job as the chief whip. So it sort of depends who you ask. I think the big thing is it's an admission that everything hasn't been going well, right?
Because I suppose there was a version, I mean, this has been discussed, so maybe you don't want to go there in too much detail today, but there's a version of this where Angela Rayner's roles were the only ones that were replaced. Then there was another version where you took advantage to do a couple of swaps. But to do a reshuffle on this scale seems to me, as a sort of general observer of politics, to show your workings. He's trying to get agency out of this situation. He's trying not to waste a crisis.
Completely. And they're trying to salvage a situation that was very embarrassing and damaging and say, actually, this is the moment to get our players in the positions that we really want them in. We've had 12 months. We've had a good look at how everybody performs. And actually, we want to make some changes. And this is the occasion. Don't waste a crisis. Try and salvage it. So that's why the briefing out of number 10 is about this is a renewed team, refreshed and vigorous to be able to get on with delivering the people's priorities. What this is not, though, Paddy, which is, I think, a point worth making, it's not a reshuffle that is a result of any big change in ideological direction. You know, there is some commentary today saying, oh, it shows Labour's going to move to the right because of Shabana Mahmood. I don't think this does represent a big ideological bust up, or it's not the product of, you know, Remainers being kicked out by Boris Johnson, or, you know, people who wanted to put taxes up being booted out by Liz Truss. It's not about a big ideological clash. I think it's about efficacy, or, you know, putting square pegs in square holes and round pegs in round holes. What we will know probably, I don't know, within a couple of months, or certainly by Christmas, a senior party source was suggesting to me, whether or not Number 10 can do what many of their backers are desperate for them to do, is to use this reshuffle to show a material change in how good they are at running the country and how good they are at doing politics. Because they haven't shown that in the last 12 months. They would admit privately. Does this new team actually give them more ability to cope with all the challenges and the opportunities, but the never-ending difficulties of running the country?
Yeah, because I'm also seeing a mirror image of the arrival of this government, which was this endless talking about the winter fuel allowance. And we've now got this endless talking about the end of November budget. We're back to saying, speculating on podcasts, where are you going to find maybe 20, I've seen 40 billion pounds that can make all the bits of the OBR's report join up if you're going to meet your fiscal rules?
I think we should ban it. It's only the 6th of September. So I think, what should we say? Newscasters, tell us, at what point shall we start talking about the budget at the weekends? Shall we be unlike all our podcasting and broadcasting friends and just say, let's ban it until a bit further down the tracks? Because frankly, at this point...
You would like... You would... I'm getting strong banning vibes from you.
Well, I just think at this point, the Treasury doesn't remotely have any decisions about what they're going to do. You know, it's so far away. Anyway, I mean, I shouldn't be banning anything. I don't believe in banning things. People can talk about whatever they want to talk about. As a journalist, I believe in free speech. But let's not, at this point on the 6th of September, spend ages speculating about the budget, because there's plenty of other real things to talk about. Tell me, though, this, because you've been in Brighton and you got a sense from some voters. Labour, of course, like any political party, is made up of all sorts of different levels. Did you detect also that was support from the party people there?
Yes, so I spoke to the leader of Brighton and Hove City Council. She's Bella Sankey. She's the Labour leader here. And she's a massive supporter of Angela Rayner. She said it's very sad what's happened. She does think that Angela Rayner's record as a strong force from working class background in the north has been really important. She does want to talk about measures she was taking, which now, of course, she'll have to be a voice on the backbenchers. And what she did say to me is that she, as a local Labour Party leader, she really hopes that the party can do a swift leadership election for the deputy. And you were telling me earlier that Tom Watson has even suggested axing it. And I just wonder if that's a sign that we are going to have to see something decided, even if it's only someone quickly telling us what is the timetable. But I'm not sure how much drift, never mind me wanging on about the budget, I'm not sure how much drift there should be for Labour Party people that I was speaking to about the mechanics of this election. It is the NEC, the National Executive Committee, which does have a role. And I don't think Labour governments like to hear the NEC mentioned very much.
No, they don't. And it was certainly a feature of Jeremy Corbyn's torrid time in charge, was that people like me spend a long time standing outside NEC meetings while vital decisions that affected the party very profoundly were made. And that is not a route down which Keir Starmer wants to go. But we will see. And the deputy leadership contest will have to get going at some point unless the NEC decides to scrap it. But the conference, of course, for the party is happening in just a few weeks' time. And any contest means difference and it means argument, and that is the last thing that Downing Street wants. Talking of conference, though, Reform is on its second day of its conference today, and they have, frankly, wandering around the conference centre, talking to lots of their party members. They have been having a lovely time. They looked like they were enjoying it. They're definitely enjoying the political moment, and there's no question that the mood there was incredibly chipper, even though only a day after he said that he would stop the small boats within a fortnight if he won an election, Nigel Farage has, shall we say, clarified that promise already. Let's then talk about immigration. Now, you said yesterday, if you make it to Downing Street, that you would stop all small boats arriving within 2 weeks. How on earth would you do that?
As soon as the law is in place, as soon as you have the ability to detain and deport, you'll stop it in 2 weeks. By the way, Australia did exactly this in 2012. They spent years, as we've spent, wrangling. What do we do? They passed bits of legislation. They put together offshore processing centres. None of it worked. And in the end, they had the legal base to allow Tony Abbott, the Prime Minister then, to tow the boats back to Indonesia. Within 2 weeks, they stopped coming.
But to be clear about what you're promising the public, you're saying 2 weeks after you passed a law,
of course,
which might take many, many months.
Well, we want to do it as quickly as we possibly can.
But just to be clear with people watching this, your promise, therefore, would be not if you get into power that you would stop the boats within 2 weeks. It's that after you passed legislation, which might take a long time to go through Parliament, you think
well,
it
number
would take
one,
a
let's hope
fortnight
it
to
doesn't
happen.
take a long time, but within 2 weeks of passing legislation, we will stop this. Absolutely.
So newscasters are smart people. They will all have noticed that promising to stop something in a fortnight is not the same as saying once you go through getting a new law, getting through Parliament, all of those things, getting it past the House of Lords, then you'll do it 2 weeks. Once you've completed that process, those are not the same things.
Yeah, and there's this other very troublesome part for Nigel Farage, which is, of course, the political winds are blowing in his direction. Of course, the conference has shown its tails wagging. And under our system, you would expect an insurgent party to enjoy mistakes made by the governing party. So we put that out there, and we can understand why spirits are high in reform.
Now, as we've been recording, the first tranche of junior ministers to go into government or have their chairs moved around in government have just landed at 3:33 on Saturday. Paddy, shall I read them out really, really, really quickly, like a racing commentator?
Read them slowly.
Oh, well, then we'll be here all day.
Well, how many have we got to get through?
Jason Stockwood, Minister of State, businessman into the Treasury and Business. Dan Jarvis, Minister of State in the Cabinet Office, will stay at the Home Office. Jackie Smith, Minister of State, Department for Work and Pensions, as well as Minister for Skills and Education. Lord Valence, Patrick Valence, he of COVID fame. He's staying on in science, but is also getting a job in the Net Zero Department. Oh, interesting. Michael Shanks, MP, Minister of State for the Business Department and Energy Security and Net Zero. Alison McGovern, Ministry of State and Ministry of Housing. Angela Eagles going to DEFRA. Diana Johnson is going to DWP. Ooh, those are two other Home Office ministers being moved. That's interesting. Sarah Jones, who was in charge of steel, is now going into the Home Office. And three other people have left government. Poppy Gustafson, who was sent to the Lords to look after entrepreneurs and business. Jim McMahon, who used to be the leader of Oldham Council, top pub quiz fact. And Dan Zeichner, who I think is a Cambridge MP, he's left the government too. How did I do?
So, well, I mean, it's just the scale of it coming back to us again. The scale of this reshuffle after the departure, the forced departure of Andrea Rayner, is so much bigger than we were expecting. And I've seen it said that this is showing a Morgan McSweeney sweep, not just a Keir Starmer sweep. And maybe I'm obsessed with Morgan McSweeney. Is there signs of someone working out over the long summer what could happen in the forced departure of Andrea Rayner? Is this something that's been worked on a beach somewhere?
Well, I don't know if Morgan McSweeney went to the beach, but you would be right, according to lots of my sources, in thinking that much of this has come from Morgan McSweeney's thinking, without doubt. Particularly he and other people in and around Number 10 have admired Shabana Mahmood for quite some time. And also, it would be weird if his fingerprints weren't on this. You know, he's been Keir Starmer's by his side. He's been his sort of top political lieutenant for quite some time now. So, you know, people love to write about the mysterious chiefs of staff. But of course, they have their fingerprints on big political decisions. But yes, one of my contacts said to me yesterday, yes, this is Morgan's reshuffle. But, you know, there are always myths around, aren't there? Politics is made of myths, as well as policy ideas, grudges, friendships, rivalries, and all the rest.
Well, we can say that the recess ended with this giant reset, which was meaning that phase 2, which he outlined to the BBC's Matt Chorley last Monday, phase 2 of the Labour government lasted a week.
It lasted a week. Not even really a week.
So a lot of news, but anything we missed in terms of the colour, the spirit, the esprit of the reform delegates? I am quite interested to know how Dame Andrea Jenkyns' latest singing episode has gone, because she did appear with Adam on an earlier newscast celebrating her amazing talents at singing, and she's been displaying them on the stage.
She has, and in case you didn't see it, she sang this while also wearing an incredible blue sparkly sequin jumpsuit.
Yes, clock, the sound of that clock. I'm an insomniac.
Andrea Jenkyns having the bottle as a British elected politician to go on stage in a sequined jumpsuit and sing her heart out.
Yes, well, that will certainly keep me awake.
When people are awake tomorrow to listen to you on the radio or watch the programme on BBC One in the morning, what are you doing on Broadcasting House tomorrow?
So we will round up the scoops that, as earlier discussed. Also, the tone of British conversation, British public conversation, the Angela Rayner track record, the way she's attracted all the criticism, the mistakes she's made, her house being graffitied. We'll wrap some of that up with Ed Davey, a political rival who came out midweek to say, guys, there's a disabled boy at the centre of this story. Is it possible Britain can try and reach for a better tone?
Interesting. With us tomorrow, Nigel Farage, I spoke to him this morning in Birmingham. Kemi Badenoch, the Tory leader. John Healey, the Defence Secretary, is out for the government to talk about this week's shenanigans. Andy Burnham, the Greater Manchester Mayor, will also join us alongside Emily Thornberry, senior Labour backbencher, who, I don't know, might she have a little eye on the deputy leadership? Who knows? And also Brian Cox and Michael Gove.
Wow. How long have you got tomorrow?
Oh, 5 hours.
That's
They
a great
get 10
lineup.
seconds each. Shh, enough of you.
That's a great lineup. Well, it's a fabulous way to come back. It's an amazing moment for Labour and the country. This big political history. We'll always remember this moment, I think, when the new Labour government lost its deputy in such a way, and all to play for on the Sunday airwaves and print.
Jolly good. We shall see you for more waving on the air tomorrow. Paddy, it's lovely to be back with you, but it will be even more exciting when you're on the sofa and
Yes.
opposite me, and we will be properly reunited. So look forward to that. Newscasters, as ever, let us know what you think. If you think that we're talking rubbish, or if you think we're saying interesting things, or indeed if you just are enjoying the view out of the window that Paddy has moved his camera to show us all. There is the wonderful Brighton seafront. That looks really nice. And you got a Reform UK cushion. That's their teal colour. And there were people wearing teal suits and turquoise make Britain great again hats. Well, everybody.
That's an accident.
Sorry?
That's an impartial accident. That we didn't ask for that cushion.
I think that kind of camera work is going to be Oscar worthy. So we should probably leave it at that.
Bye.
Goodbye. That's it for Newscast today, but there's much more if you want to hear on BBC Sounds. So don't ignore that if you fancy more treats for your ears.